Hi, One Share leaders. I am coming to you from my backyard. I'm sure we're all working from some really odd spaces over the last couple weeks, doing the best that we can, making do. So I wanted to bring you something relevant. I know a lot of us are working from home with kids and trying to juggle that. It's a lot on top of work, keeping them entertained and watching them, as well as other distractions at home, like a partner, a spouse, a family member, a dog. So I wanted to give you just some helpful tips and strategies to maybe give you some ideas on how to better navigate this time and make sure it's successful and productive. So first, and overarching really, is about setting boundaries with kids and compromising. So if your kids are old enough to understand, you want to set expectations with them around meetings and what we can call work zones. And you can use that term with them. So discuss what they think is appropriate or not appropriate to do while mom and dad are in these meetings or work zones. And that should be defined space as well as a defined conversation. And I know not everybody has a ton of space in their house. Maybe you have an office at home, maybe you don't. Maybe your office is like a little chair set up in the corner of your basement. We have one of those going on right now because my husband and I are both trying to share one desk and a house with a ton of people in it. So, you kind of have to make do. I just set up in my backyard with a little table and my bench. And, it doesn't need to be a permanent work zone. Obviously, I'm gonna let my kids come out and play during the day, but when mommy's working, I'm clarifying, hey, this is mommy's work zone right now. Nobody's allowed in it until I'm done. So defining those zones, both spatially and verbally, are really helpful to set the tone that you can't be interrupted and it's important. Have activities planned for them during these times, like calls with friends or family members. They're probably missing and lacking that FaceTime too, not having a lot of interaction. So it might be a great time to have a call with grandma or their favorite school friend that they haven't been able to see for a couple weeks and they really miss. This would be a great opportunity to distract while you catch up on things you need to do. Next, tell them to write down any questions that they have for you during the time that you need to work or you're on a call, and give them to you when they're done. So this could be a special notebook that you give them with a fun pen, and you guys could decorate it together with stickers if they're little and they get excited about those kinds of things, and they know how to write, obviously. And tell them to hold all their questions, write them down so they don't forget. And once mommy's done working or daddy's done working and off the call, we'll sit down and we'll go over those questions together. Now, then you want to define what is an appropriate interruption, which would probably be an emergency. For a child, not being able to find their shoe or being hungry for a snack could be, depending on the age, an emergency. And I'm sure you guys that are parents know this. So define what that emergency looks like. Hey, if something's on fire, if someone's really injured, right? If a stranger's at the door, don't open it. But if somebody tries to come in, right? Those are emergencies. Those are appropriate to interrupt mommy or daddy while I'm on a call or on the phone. So defining those ahead of time, having them hold their questions and write them down so you can discuss them after, is a really good way to kind of eliminate some of those distractions while you're needing to focus and have a call or a meeting or whatever it is. Another opportunity to get them involved in the conversation is give them fun choices throughout the day as a trade-off. And this could be like what they'll eat for lunch or what they'll get to have for a snack, a special reward they can earn if they're being really good listeners and giving you your space and your time and respecting those work zones that you've set up. It could be what activities that they want to do during those times that you're working. And maybe you create, if you're someone that's more rigid on screen time. I know I'm kind of one of those people, my poor kids. You want to make a list of activities that you find appropriate and like a nice spread of things that they're doing. They can choose what they want to do during that time. And that way you're also monitoring that's not like TV time every time. And I'll get to that a little bit later too, as like a special reward. This allows them to have a sense of power and control and let them be part of the decision-making process, because as humans, from children to adult, the one thing we always want when we feel out of control is that sense of power and control, right? That's where all those power battles and struggles come in. So when you're allowing them to have a sense of power and control over some of those little choices that impact their day, it'll help ease some of the tension and frustration on their end amidst all this change they're experiencing too. Another great thing is when, I talk a lot about scheduling little breaks for yourself is really, really necessary to maintain your focus and your energy. Schedule in breaks with your kids and let them decide what you're going to do together during that time too. And that could be really fun. Hey, when mommy and daddy has done this call, we're going to have a 10-minute break and we can do whatever you want to do together. It's just me and you, right? Go for a walk. Like, what do you want to do during that time? Now, if you can, the screen time, like I mentioned, easier said than done. Try to limit screen time. Make this a really special treat. And I'm sure as we're all getting into like week 3 of being sequestered with our kids, that's going out the window, even for me, who's like a TV Nazi. But, try to limit the screen time so that it is precious. You have kind of like that last card to pull out of your pocket and play when you really need it. So if they're just being really difficult that day, or you have a really important call that you cannot be bothered, that might be a good time to pull out the TV card and make it a really special, precious treat. Okay, next is create loud or silly time for them to get their energy out and go a little hog wild. And this is even better if you can do it with them. And you can have a countdown around this, like at 10:30, if your kid can tell time, we are going to have 5 minutes of loud and crazy time. And for little ones, you might want to describe it like, after daddy gets off the phone, we are going to have you and me time and we're going to go loud and crazy. But before then, we need to use our quiet voices and our inside voices. Okay, and then set the timer and do it with them. It becomes a fun bonding experience. You probably have a lot of stress you need to get out too. Lord knows we can all be a little pent up with our stress and the demands on our time and our energy. So go out and crazy for 5 minutes and let you and them get your energy out and have a sense of relief of tension. Now, if you have little ones, like I do, try to treat their interruptions like you would one in the workplace, right? You're not going to completely ignore a coworker who comes up to you and needs to interrupt you. You'll probably take a minute and excuse yourself and address the coworker and say, hey, okay, cool, no problem. Like, let me finish this call and I'll get to you at this time. Right? You kind of want to do the same. So excuse yourself, acknowledge your child for a minute, hear what they have to say, whether you can address their needs briefly in the moment or designate in terms that they understand when you can come back to it. Often, if you just take a moment to acknowledge them, they will be off to the next thing and perfectly happy playing. They just want to know that you're still there for them. They want to know that they can still get your attention when they need it. So this could help minimize interruption, since you're still giving them a piece of the attention that they crave and not terribly interrupting your call or your meeting or your work. And that way they don't feel ignored or like they need to act out to get that attention. The next thing I want to say is just recognize that above all, children are totally unpredictable. So there will be days and times that they play along great and days and times where nothing goes right and you just have to adjust accordingly and send a million apologies to whomever you need to work with that day while you're getting interrupted left and right. So just understand that and have grace and respect for that, because kids are kids, right? And we're all trying to juggle this really unique time of being teachers and parents and professionals and partners all at once. Now, when it comes to other distractions, I want to touch on this briefly too, because not everyone has kids. You probably, like I said at the beginning, might have a dog or a partner or spouse at home who's also trying to share workspace, or a family member who is quarantined inside with you. The biggest thing to eliminate those arguments up front is to set clear expectations with each member around your house around what is your working time, when it takes place, when it's appropriate to disturb you or not disturb you, right? It's kind of a similar version of the kids, but an adult conversation. For example, you might need to tell your mom or dad that lives with you, hey, If it's not an emergency, I cannot be interrupted on this call. I'm gonna have a call for the next hour and I can't be interrupted, okay? Or, hey, if I'm not on a call and you have a quick question for me, it's perfectly fine to poke your head into my office or my workspace and ask, but I won't be able to chat, okay? When I'm working, I really need to be focused. So set those clear expectations ahead of time. So if you have a partner or a spouse, set a schedule ahead of time, especially if you're juggling kids. And this really comes into play, again, eliminating those arguments up front. Like, if you have to juggle kids, sit down, hash it all out at one time where you're setting a clear schedule, write out the schedule, type it up, put it on paper, take a picture of it, send it. My husband and I had to do that. Hey, I get this hour, you get this hour. I get this hour, you get this hour. And we rotate blocks of time. And not every day is equal. Some days he's got a bunch of meetings that he can't move. And so I need to have a lighter day that day and make up the time on the next day. But when we look at the schedule for the week, it's pretty equitable. We've been able to agree to it and argue over it ahead of time. And as emergencies come up, we have the understanding that we might need to flex here and there with each other and communicate. But for the most part, I know when I'm expected to work. I can plan meetings and calls around that time. And I know when he's going to take over with the kids and vice versa. So again, that's my piece of advice. Hash it out up front. Get it down, get everyone on the same page so you're not having to change every single day and figure it out every single day. It's going to cause a lot of unnecessary tension. If you can, choose separate rooms to work in. Plan the night before for special circumstances. So if you're needing to go live, for example, or like I'm filming this video, like I needed to tell everyone, hey, I need the backyard to film this video and I can't be interrupted. Give me 15, 20 minutes. Okay. Make sure that you arrange with your household members or your partner, spouse, and kids ahead of time what space you'll need to be based on whether you need a specific background or particular lighting, or if you need quiet. If someone needs to go in the basement and someone else needs to go upstairs because you both have calls that are really important and you can hear each other otherwise. Work these out ahead of time so you aren't scrambling and stressed and everyone's on the same page with the game plan. If you have a dog and you don't want to be interrupted and they're barking, put your dog outside or in a particular room if you're worried about those types of interruptions, right? The best thing you can do, and really all of these tie into the same theme, is to plan ahead of time. Clearly communicate, have these conversations up front, make a structure, make a plan, and navigate and negotiate as you go so that nothing comes as a surprise and you're not scrambling because you don't have that designated workspace anymore and it might need to change every day. My workspace literally shifts day to day. I have my work schedule and my husband and I know, but the night before we need to work out when, somebody gets the desk and when somebody needs to work out of the basement where the kids may or may not be playing or we can hear them playing. So that is my best piece of advice to you is set a schedule, set clear expectations, communicate up front to alleviate interruptions, tension down the road, and just do your best to be flexible with everyone else and with yourself. These are uncharted territory for all of us, and we're all doing the best that we can, but I know you can do this. You can stay focused, you can stay positive, you can stay productive. You just have to do a little more legwork and structure up front. If you have any questions, I am here for you. You can call me, email me, anytime. If you need advice on anything or have some suggestions you want to share with me, please do so. I will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your week.